We see the extraordinary valuations of generative AI enabling companies. Is that really where the activity still is? Is there room and oxygen in the room for others?
I think that's where the majority of the activity is. We see about 2/3 of our deals are in the Gen AI space, but there's also other big areas that are still very active. We still do a lot in healthcare, there's still a lot in Fintech. So it's not all Gen AI. The other thing is that Gen AI is becoming everything.
Yes.
You're talking about healthcare, while a lot of the activity in healthcare is Gen AI related, optimizing back office, improving patient interactions. So I think this distinction is going to become obsolete very, very soon.
Well, look, we just had Sebastian of Klarna as the company goes public. He, very clear adopter of generative AI within his fintech business.
Yeah.
It's a European star that's listed in America. You have a European and UK-based star in Revolut. How hot is the fintech space going to be after this successful exit? It looks like it is.
Yeah, first of all, congrats to Klarna on what looks to be a very successful IPO. I think it's a fantastic precedent for European companies. 15 billion plus, it's an amazing outcome for a great and very unique business. I think it shows that you can build giant technological companies from Europe, which there are some doubters out there. But I think with Spotify and Adyen and Klarna, and then in the future the likes of Revolut, this is coming again and again. I think the reality with fintech is there were a lot of doubters, saying, well, how are they going to replace banks? How are they going to compete effectively? The cost of capital is higher, and so on and so forth. And I think what you're seeing is a lot of incredible businesses being created that are increasingly taking market share and customers by being way more customer friendly, adopting new tools, offering new products way faster. And Klarna is a good example of that, and Revolut is hopefully an even better example of that.
I mean, you are all in on the EU, on European success stories, but you and I are both European transplants moving here to America. Is the reality that the liquidity is here when companies eventually do go public? They're going to want to come to the US capital markets?
I think in general, the US capital markets are deeper. There's more capital, there's more analysts, there's more knowledge. So there's clearly a geographical network effect that is happening, is getting stronger with every IPO. The pool gets stronger and stronger. So I think there is, this is the primary market. This is the most obvious markets for most companies, not only European. It's the same for, look at Nubank, another fintech darling listed in New York as well, although only present mostly in Brazil and Latin America. So it's not a European-only phenomenon. What I would say is, if I were a European market, I would try to be way more competitive. It's not only about being on par with US market. It's about offering more to entrepreneurs and founders, to early investors, to make sure you can attract them and you can compete. Otherwise, this geographical network effect will just keep on getting stronger. And yes, most European companies will end up being listed here.
Look, you offer a lot to founders and index ventures, and what an extraordinary year you're having. I'm thinking about the Figma IPO success. You've had significant exits when I think of M&A and Wiz. How does that change the inbound that you're getting when everyone's seeing index so clearly on the map? It always has been, but from a geographical perspective, wins in the US, in Israel, and Europe.
Yeah, it's we do have a lot of inbound. It's been a fantastic year, kind of an overnight success. 10, 15 years in the making. Like Figma, we've been investors for way more than 10 years. So it's all happening now in some ways because the market is open, the window is open. But there have been relationships that we've been working with for decade plus, and that where we bet very early on these very young founders. Dylan was 19 when we first invested in him. He was still an intern. Alex at scale was 21. Wiz, Asaf, we've been working with him in his previous business already, so more than a decade. So those are very, very long-term relationships that happen to materialize in some exits now. But I think that's the way we think about the business. It's not about, the market's open, let's invest more, let's have a quick, make a quick buck. We are investing in the very long term. And the investments we make now, we know they're going to take a decade plus to flourish and turn into very large, hopefully independent and public companies.
And that makes LPs excited and committed to stay with you. Very briefly, how's it changing the landscape of VC, though?
there is a bit of a meme out there where people thinking that VCs are going to follow the hedge fund and especially the private equity industry, where you either go very, very big or you stay very, very niche, and there is no place in between. I think our view at Index is slightly different, where we believe there is actually a middle ground that is the best, not necessarily for the GPs and the VCs themselves, but definitely for the entrepreneurs, where you need enough scale to support your entrepreneurs on a global basis. We cover from Tel Aviv to San Francisco. You need to offer them the services that they need in terms of hiring, in terms of marketing, in terms of sales and customer development. So you need a certain size to pay for that infrastructure, but you also don't want to be too big that you become a corporation and you have kind of a conveyor belt of founders and there is no individual relationship. Again, we're investing in people very early on, very often in their journey when they are 19, 20, 21. And that requires a level of empathy, a level of understanding that takes just this interpersonal relationship that you lose when you get to a very large scale. The very large scale can be very good for the GPs themselves, but are not necessarily what the founders really, really need. And so I think that's why we're sticking to that kind of middle size.
Right.
And we think that's the best approach.